Hello Kainatis. This is In Your Sky for the month of May. We start off this month with a meteor shower. These are events where you can see many shooting stars in the night, throughout the night, all night long, and you don't even need a telescope. In the night between the 5th and 6th of May, you can just go out, lay down for a couple of hours and just look up. You might see roughly around 40 to 50 meteors per hour if you are in a very dark sky location. However, from cities you can expect a much lower number. This meteor shower is called the Aquariid Meteor Shower. And this happens around the same dates every year because of the debris trail left over by comet Halley. It's a very famous comet out there. And as the Earth in its orbit around the Sun passes through this debris trail, we see a bunch of shooting stars pop up in the night sky. Now let's head over to a couple of conjunctions where the moon will appear to get really close to different planets in the sky. Remember, this is only a vantage point problem. They appear to get close only as seen from Earth. In reality, in space, they are billions, if not millions of kilometers away from each other. 3rd May brings the moon really close to the planet Mars. So whenever you look up in the sky around 3rd May and you notice the moon, just look for a tiny, non-twinkling orange star. That will be Mars. 22nd May is where the moon will get close to Saturn. Saturn is slightly dimmer than Mars and it may appear a little yellowish. So whenever you spot the moon in the early morning hours on the 22nd of May, check if you can see a yellow dot, again, which is not twinkling. That should be Saturn. And just a day after that, on the 23rd of May, again in the morning sky, moon gets really close to the brilliant, glittering, shimmering Venus. This month also brings the best time to see Venus in the morning sky. And that date is around 31st May. So again, this has to be a little early in the morning. So if you get up really early before sunrise, you can see a brilliant, sparkling star in the sky. That is not any star. That is our planetary neighbor. That is Venus, brilliantly shining in the pre-dawn morning sky. Now, there are other interesting events happening in this month as well. So if you are interested in our moon, 12th May is the time to look for the full moon. I mean, you can't miss it. You just go out and look at the full moon, but you might notice, or maybe not, that the moon appears smaller than usual. Well, that's because this month's full moon is what's called the mini moon. You see, the moon doesn't really orbit the Earth in a perfect circle. The orbit of the moon around the Earth is a slightly squeezed circle, so maybe perhaps like an oval. We call it an ellipse. So that brings the moon close to Earth sometimes, and then sometimes it takes it a little farther away. It just so happens that around the 12th of May, the moon is full, but it's at the furthest point in its orbit around Earth. So it appears a little smaller. This change from what otherwise is known as the supermoon is too small to be noticed by the human eye. So now that we have talked about it, you might actually feel it to be a little tiny, but remember, the change is not really detectable by our eye. What is preferred and recommended is if you have a telescope, and then after a couple of months when the conditions change, take another look at the full moon that might be a little bit larger than the mini moon. And then around the 27th of May is the new moon, which means there is no moon in the sky, and so you can plan your summer star party because the moon will not bother you with its moonlight in the sky. Now let's talk about the constellation of the month. This month we're looking at Virgo. It's a fairly dim constellation, so you cannot expect to see all of its stars from a city. You might see a couple of stars, but there's one star that stands out that's the brightest star of this constellation, one of the brighter stars of the night sky. We'll talk about it in a little bit. Now, how can you find this constellation in the night sky? Well, if you go out at night on 11th of May and just look up, you'll see the moon. And very close to the moon will be a sort of like a bright blue star. This star is called Spica, and it is the brightest star in the constellation of Virgo. Now, this constellation is filled with fairly dim stars. So from a city, you cannot expect to see other stars of this constellation very easily. However, you can spot Spica, which is the brightest. So, in this episode, we talked about the Eta Aquariid Meteor Shower, different conjunctions between the moon and planets, the best morning to see our next door neighbor, Venus, and we talked about the mini moon, the new moon, and also the constellation of the month, Virgo, which by the way has Spica, its brightest star that you can see around 11th of May. Until next time, this was In Your Sky.